Welcome to this video. In this video we want to see how to make delicious creamy yogurt using simple, very simple steps. You won't believe how easy this is to achieve. See the consistencies we got. So we'll start by sterilizing our containers as using hot water to rinse them thoroughly to avoid any dirt or any form of germs that would have been hiding there, so it doesn't affect our mixture. Now for this recipe we'll be using powdered milk. You can use any powdered milk that you have around you, any powdered milk of your choice. It might be creamy, it might be the regular what's it called, the full cream, or like your Dano Cool Cow. No, anyone, pick milk, whatever kind of powdered milk you have around you, that will be using here. So for this we're using this cup for our measurement. You can use any cup you have because our focus here is using that cup as our means of measurement, nothing else. So whichever cup, you see why this recipe is so easy, whichever cup you have, that's fine. So we're going to measure. We're using, for this recipe we're using just 2 cups. You see the first one was so full, so I'm trying to make sure the second one is not that full, so that it creates a balance of approximately 2 cups of it. Now why was that so? Because to get a thick consistency of yogurt you need 2 equal measurement of milk to equal amount of hot water, not necessarily boiling, but it has to be steaming hot. Maybe you've boiled it and left it for some time, probably okay. For instance, you see when the water boiled, I used it to sterilize, so it was no more boiling. I used it to sterilize. I was done rinsing the containers. Of course it has cooled down a bit, that's okay. What we mean by boiled water, so it should be hot boiling water. So we mix the first, we just put 1 cup for now. Mix thoroughly. That's very important, that aids the smoothness. Mix thoroughly. So we're going to go in with the 2nd cup of water. Also mix thoroughly. That way we're using a whisk. If you use spoon, this might not be easy to achieve. So you mix thoroughly, mix until you see me scraping the edges, making sure every milk is in and well dissolved, so that make it sure it is well dissolved. Now you don't have to use the electric. You can see this is supposed to be, this whisk is from my machine, but I didn't use the machine so that it doesn't over whisk it. Just like when you're making ice cream, you don't need that speed, so just mix it. Like I said, if your spoon can do it, but it's easier to use this whisk. So when you mix it thoroughly, that's the emphasis, thoroughly mixed, then you leave it to cool for some time. It's too hot right now because remember we just poured in hot water, so it's still hot. You see, that was me checking the whisk to see if there are still lumps on it. So when you check your whisk, there is no lump on it, there is no gathering, like nice, it's all clear. That means your milk has mixed thoroughly. So like I said, we'll leave it for some time, maybe 10 minutes or so to cool. And then when it's cooled, you could check. How do you check if it's the right temperature to go to the next step? You dip your finger into it. Now if your finger is able to withstand the heat, you see how long the finger stayed, then that means, if you have a thermometer you could use that, but that's fine. Hot enough to stand the heat of your finger, and the heat of, if your finger is able to stand the heat, then that's fine. So then we're going to go in with a yogurt. Now this yogurt is non-sweetened, so we're using it as our starter culture. It's non-sweetened, so I just bought this. You could ask when you go to the shop to buy, ask for the best they have non-sweetened yogurt. So you scoop in 2 or 3 spoons. That's enough to go on with what you want to do. For 2 or 3 spoons max, it's okay for it. So when you put in your starter culture, which again I repeat is an unsweetened yogurt, no sugar, no flavor, just plain yogurt, ask for best option when you go to a store and you mix that thoroughly. Remember, our yogurt is still hot. It's still hot. I wouldn't say warm because it's hotter than warm. So we'll mix that thoroughly again, checking to see that everything is well combined. So when you mix this thoroughly and everything is well combined, then the next thing you would do is to get, just like I'd gotten and sterilized, you pour in the mixture into your bowl. Now this bowl, number 1, has to be sterilized. Number 2, it has to be airtight. Airtight is very, 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 very important. If it's not airtight, then it won't do the work. So now you see I'm turning in the mixture into this airtight container that has been sterilized. Now the reason why it has to be airtight is that to trap and lock in the heat that is still there, so that will help us to kickstart the fermentation process of the yogurt. So you seal it tight. Now before now you would have tried, or you can use a cooler. You can, when you finish sealing and closing the yogurt, you place it in a warm place. Now you could decide to use your oven, and definitely this place that you are going to is going to be a place where nothing will disturb it, nothing will shake it. So I advise, if you have children, I don't know whether to say your room or somewhere warm. So before putting it in that place, we tied it to further enhance the heating of it.
So for this, I didn't show you that, but after tying it here,
I used a cooler. So the cooler was guarded. Now this was, and there were towels in it, blankets in it. So I put it inside the blanket, covered with another set of clothes just to keep it very warm, and then covered it up and kept till 8 hours later. The next day, actually this was 10 hours later. You can do between 8 and 10 hours, but the longer it stays, the more it ferments, and so the more sour it is. So if you like your yogurt being very sour, then you leave it for up to 10 to 12 hours. Now if it's less than that, it should still have a bit of milk taste. So if you want to completely, especially if you are someone that likes non-sweetened yogurt, you like to leave it for at least 10 to 12 hours. So this is it after 12 hours. Look at the consistency. Sorry, this was after 10 hours. Look at the consistency we got from the yogurt. Sorry about that tilt in my hand, I wasn't conscious of it. So you see the yogurt, the consistency of the yogurt, it was really creamy, really creamy. But I have something else for you. Now before I made this one, I had made one without using the same measurement, so I want to pay attention. Now for that other one I made, so I'm drawn by the creaminess of this. See how creamy it is. So back to what I was trying to say. The other one that I made, I'll be showing you shortly. That other one, I used double the amount of water. So what I did was I used 2 cups, the same 2 cups here, for this thick one, the same 2 cups of milk, but I added 4 cups of water. Yes, 4 cups of boiling water. So that was what I did for that one, and it didn't turn out so bad. I'll show it to you shortly. It will come up shortly. So this was the one we did, and mind you, at this point we just brought it out of the cooler. You can see the green cooler was what I used. Just brought it out of the cooler. It has not entered the fridge, so it has not fully set. Imagine it being thick like this when it has not entered the fridge. So I covered that one and set it aside. Now I want to show you the one I was talking about. So this particular one, here it comes. So you see the towel I used for that. So you need to fortify your cooler, especially when the weather is a bit cold. Now if you look at this one, you see that when you hear the 2 double the amount of water, you'll be expecting it to be very runny, right? Okay, let's just watch and see the consistency we are going to get from this other one. And this one I made it like maybe 30 to or so minutes, about 30 to 40 minutes before I stirred that other one. So I'll talk about the result of that later. So let's see the consistency that we are getting from this one. Now see, it's still thick. See the glowy surface, no water on it, no way, nothing to strain, no stress. This is the easiest method you can ever make to see that consistency. It's a bit light, it's lighter, but then it's not so bad. I mean, the yogurt we buy, this is when it has not even entered the fridge. So imagine how it will be. I'll show you how it will be when it enters the fridge. So it has not fully set. So this was me stirring it to just make it smooth before we put it in the fridge. So see, of course this passes for a normal yogurt. So you see, you can decide to use double the amount of water, but I would advise you use like 2:3. Don't really do double. I think this was not exactly double anyways. So that was me trying to compare the consistency. So I think this was about 3.5 cups. So don't do double. So you can do 2, 3 or 4, 6, something like that, in that ratio, depending on the size of the cup you're using. So, and always make sure you have enough water so you don't run out of water and then you start running around, and then you start interfering with the quality of it. Just make sure you have sufficient water based on the measurement you want to use. And I also advise you start with small quantity like I did, or you could go for 1 cup just to make sure you've mastered the process. But it's not a big deal anyway. Anyone can do this. So that's why I love this method and decided to share it with you. So this is the point. At this point, before we put it in the fridge, we need to add, if you want to add coloring, you want to add flavor, this is the point where you add it. But please, especially for the flavors, do not do too much. Like for me, trying to make it very natural, that's my vanilla flavor. So I just put a drop of it, just a drop of it into it, and then just to give it that taste. Mind you, if you put too much of this flavor, it's going to give a harsh taste to it. So what I did was I poured some of the vanilla, some of the lighter yogurt, and then I added some of the thick one just to have a balance in between, like an in-between consistency. I like plain yogurt, but for the sake of the children, I introduced just very little sugar to it, and I must tell you that the children really loved it. it was not as sweet as the one you buy outside. So that's the beauty of making your yogurt yourself. You get to control the quantity of sugar that goes in to it. So little sugar, look at that, was just 1 cup for that, 1 teaspoon of sugar for that cup of yogurt. The ones we buy outside have so much sugar. This is just to give it a little bit of sweetness. Remember, okay, so I didn't remember to tell you that the lighter one, the lighter plate stayed longer, like I said, about 30 minutes difference, and so its taste was more sour than the other thick one. So it was more sour than it. So this mixture of both of them in the cup actually balanced the sour taste. And then so I just added a little, you saw it, just 1 spoon of sugar, and then a tiny drop of vanilla. I'm sorry it's not actually showing, but it was just a tiny drop of vanilla. Okay, thank God you're able to see that, just that tiny drop to that cup, so that you don't have an aftertaste in your mouth. So that way when you buy some yogurt, maybe it wasn't properly mixed, you start having some funny taste after drinking it. That's because the chemical, the flavor they used was in excess. So just tiny drop, and that's, like I said, it's the beauty of you making homemade things. You're able to control to a great extent what you put in it. So with this now, after mixing it, we're going to put it in the freezer, and then you see that it will have. So the other plate remaining I did now, this is it after the brought out of the freezer. You can see that's thicker. So the freezer gives it, depending on how long you leave, but I advise don't allow it freeze. If you allow it freeze, you will have to stir it, except you don't mind. You have to stir it very well. If it's frozen, you have to stir it properly, because when it thaws, when it dissolves, it will not give you a smooth taste. It's smooth look again. So except of course you're the one drinking it, so you might not really mind. But if you need to present it to your guests, you don't have. So this is because it didn't get frozen. That's why you have this smooth. So if you're serving it to visitors, you need to whisk it very well to get back the smooth consistency. If you have so before you put anything into the yogurt, like these two plates here, we not add any sugar, no flavor, so you can take part of it and store as your starter culture for your next batch. That way you don't have to go to the shop again to get another one. So please like, share, subscribe if you learned a thing or two. Thank you so much for being a part of this video. Bye. See you in my next one. Bye. Thank you.